Okay, so we're continuing on the Hachaim Hakadosh. Afraid Chanukah, everyone. Just a quick side point: Parshat Vayeishev almost never falls out on Chanukah. It's always usually the Shabbos before Chanukah. Miketz is usually the parsha that has Chanukah in it. This year is one of 13 times in the last 100 years that Miketz is not Chanukah. So it's just a very interesting point. How that occurs. I think the next time won't be either for 13 or another 20 years. So, that adds a lot to the parsha, and hopefully from the Hachaim Hakadosh we'll be able to gain some new insight into the parsha. So, a very interesting question the Hachaim comes to ask: how could Yaakov send Yosef to look for his brothers? Yaakov knew that the brothers didn't like Yosef. He put him into a dangerous situation. Wasn't he concerned that something may happen to Yosef? And we're going to see that Yaakov always had an intuition that something was going to happen to his kids. Right? We're going to learn in 2 weeks that when Yehuda wants to take Binyamin down to Mitzrayim, Yaakov said, "No, you can't, because something's going to happen to him." So if that's the case, how could Yaakov send Yosef to what's called a dangerous situation? So we're going to see how the Hachaim learns that actually Yaakov tried to protect him by sending him on a shliach mitzvah, sending him to do a mitzvah. Right? We all know we give money to a person who goes on a trip, right? Right? You give $1 or $5 to somebody going to Eretz Yisrael, give tzedakah, therefore you shliach mitzvah. So we're going to see some very interesting ideas, this concept of a shliach mitzvah, and how far does this protection actually work. This comes to another very interesting side note, not really the topic of the shir, just to point out that's one of the reasons that we are malava, we walk somebody out if they're by us, we walk them out of the house. Right? By us walking out of the house, we sort of make them our shliach, and that protects them. Today it's not as common that the streets are dangerous, but in the olden days the streets were much more dangerous. There were no lights, there was a much more open area. So that's some of the topics that the Hachaim is going to touch on. So we start in Perek Lamed Zayin, Pasuk Yud Gimel. Vayomer Yisrael el Yosef. A very interesting point. It doesn't say Yaakov, it says Yisrael. He said to Yosef, Haloi achecha royim b'Shechem. Are your brothers, right, not in Shechem, right? Therefore, so the Hachaim is going to point out, if you know they're in Shechem, why are you sending him? Right? L'cha, go, v'ashalchecha, and I will send you. So the Hachaim is going to say that's not correct grammar. You don't say go and then I will send you. First you say, I'm sending you, so please go. Aleim to them. Vayomer Vayomer, and he said, Lechna re'ei yeshleim achecha, go see how your brothers are doing. V'shalom hatzayin, and how the sheep are doing. V'hashiveni, and that's the key word of the pasuk. And I want you to come back to me. Right? That's the key word. Why did Yaakov have to add v'hashiveni? Right? If once I sent him to go see how the brothers are doing, obviously I want him to come back. Correct? Otherwise, why am I sending him? Right? It wasn't like today I could call on the phone and say, right, come back and report. So why did Yaakov have to say vayi hashiveni? So we're going to see all of these diyukim in the Hachaim Hakadosh. Pirush lecha. Why did Yaakov have to say go? Right, when the Hachaim Pasuk Yud Gimel eitz alachecha. Why does he have to say go to your brothers? If you're concerned that they hate you and they're going to cause you harm, hineni melavecha. I am escorting you, right, and therefore you'll be a protection. There's a big mitzvah, ironically, right, very interestingly, that what was one of the things, what do we do, chas v'shalom, someone gets killed in the middle of between two cities? We do what's called an egla arufa, correct? What's an egla arufa? We chop off the head of a cow, and the Beis Din says, we did not kill him, right? We don't know who killed him. We did not kill him. It says, right? Why? And why did he die? Because the person that he was hosted by did not walk him out. And like I mentioned to you before, there's a big concept of walking somebody out. And here, Yaakov was telling Yosef HaTzadik, and a very interesting insight, that the last thing that they learned was this concept of Egla Rufa, right? We're going to learn later on that Yosef, when he sends the wagons back to Yaakov, that was a hint we were learning about Egla Rufa. And that's what Yaakov was doing. Oh, so what does that have to do with cutting the head off? That's a whole topic. We can't get into it, but short term is we're basically giving something as a kapara for not protecting this individual. You always have to make payment, right? Payment is always due. The question is, right, like on Yom Kippur, Hashem forgives us, but we have to give payment to the dark side. How do we give payment to the Tzad Tumah? We throw the sheep over the mountain, right? That's the payment. So, right. Now, why the head? That's a separate thing. It's like, I don't want to get completely sidetracked. But that's the mitzvah of Eglah Rufa. And that happens when you're not walked out of the host's house. And Yaakov is telling him, don't worry, hineni milavecha, I am walking you. V'shalachacha b'dvar mitzvah, and I'm sending you as a shliach mitzvah, shetelech l'shlichusi, v'shluchei mitzvah ein nizakim. And a shliach mitzvah is not damaged, is not harmed. So Yaakov was telling Yosef, don't be afraid, l'cha, I am sending you. So therefore you're going on my behalf, v'shalchecha, and I'm sending you as a shliach mitzvah. So the Hachaim continues in Pasuk Yudalid. Atahu mefar shlichus mitzvah shoisa. Now, Yaakov is going to tell Yosef, what is the mitzvah that you have to do for me? He says, I want you to go see your brothers. V'hashiveni dover, come back to me. That's part of the mitzvah. Also, shliach lahachse l'tshuva. Not only am I making you a shliach to go find out how they're doing, I'm also making you a shliach to come back and tell me. The concept is, for example, if someone's going on a trip, you give him $5 tzedakah to give in Eretz Yisrael, and then you give him another $5 to say, I want you to give this money when you come back. So now you're shliach mitzvah on the way back as well. The protection doesn't stop only when you go to the place of your destination, also when you come back. And that's what Yaakov was telling him, lahashiveni. I want you to come back to me and report. That way you're a shliach mitzvah all the way. Because his opinion that says that a shliach mitzvah is only protected when they're going to do the mitzvah, but not on the way back. So to cover that opinion, Yaakov made him a shliach for two separate things: one to go and one to come back. Now, the Hachaim, we're not going to learn this part inside. We're going to learn it outside. It's not hard at all. Just I want to get to the next point. Hachaim says, but shliach mitzvah eino nizakin. The concept of shliach mitzvah is protected is only in a case where it is not a common area of danger, right? If a person is going to the war zone, right, where it's common that danger is there, shliach mitzvah doesn't necessarily help. So says the Hachaim, if that's the case, right, was this not a situation that Yosef going to his brothers was an idea that there is a common occurrence, right? You put him into a place where it's almost certain that there would be damage. So shliach mitzvah wouldn't help. So he explains that that's not correct because he didn't think that the brothers hated him to the point that they were going to do harm to him. And that's why Yaakov was confident by just making shliach mitzvah, that would help. Okay? That is the next few lines of the Hachaim. Now we're going to come to a bomb kasha that the Hachaim asks, and I'm sure everybody's thinking about it. So again, let's just summarize quickly. Yaakov Avinu made Yosef a shliach mitzvah. Made him a shliach mitzvah to go find the brothers, and again a shliach mitzvah to come back and report to me what happened in order to protect him. So it says the Hachaim, we're going to start with the Hachaim that it's v'in toimar. We're still in Pasuk Yudalet. So we'll first say the question outside, but Lamaisa, at the end of the day, Yosef HaTzadik was in danger and was damaged. He was kidnapped. He was sold as a slave. So what happened? I don't understand. If Yaakov Avinu protected him, there was the protection of the mitzvah. At the end of the day, it didn't help him. What happened? Shlomo, you have to say, Hachaim is going to give two terutzim. An unbelievable yesod, very hard to initially to understand it, but a nezek that actually comes out to be a very good thing is not called a nezek. What does that mean? Ultimately, as the Hachaim says, what happened at the end? Yosef went to Shechem, and we're going to see in the next Hachaim, from Shechem, let's focus on this prat first. I'm sorry. Yosef at the end became the king of Mitzrayim, the viceroy, right? So in actuality, the fact that he went to Mitzrayim was not a bad thing, was a very good thing. In addition, it helped protect the Yaakov's family during the famine. So ultimately, this is not, it can't be called a nezek, a damage, if ultimately you actually come out in a much better position. Right? It's hard to understand initially, right? If a guy misses his flight, right, then he feels, oh my gosh, it's a terrible thing. I was supposed to go to, to a meeting, and the meeting was going to net me $1 million, and then, then in the airport he bumps into somebody, and that somebody, changes his course of his life because they make a new contact, and now he opened up a whole new business. So was it bad that he missed the flight? No, it was the greatest thing that happened to him. Right? Now, at the time that he missed the flight and he's thinking that he lost all his money and everything, and he missed the contract and he missed everything, it's hard to understand. But at the end of the day, if he comes back and he says, you know what, it actually was the best thing for me because there were 3 other people that missed the flight, and one of them I made a contact with, and now I have a whole new business opportunity. He's the happiest guy in the world. Right? So here, that's what the Hachaim says as first answer. Another thing. Now, if you look at what Yaakov told him, a shliach mitzvah, the Hachaim teaches us the protection is very exact. It's only to the place you're going and to the place you're coming back. We're going to see that when Yosef got to Shechem, he didn't find the brothers. Instead of coming back to Yaakov and say, listen, I went to Shechem like you told me, I'm coming back to tell you that he didn't find them, he continued to look for them. That was not part of the message. That was not part of the shlichus. Once he continued to look, he lost the protection of the mitzvah. And therefore he was no longer a shliach of Yaakov. And that hurt him tremendously. And the Hachaim explains that since at the time that he left, he lost that special protection, and then he was able to fall into the trap of the brothers and end up getting sold to Mitzrayim. Now the Hachaim just finishes off that, right, that Yosef HaTzadik didn't fully understand the message of Yaakov Avinu, and that's why he continued. He thought that his father was just giving him an idea where to go, but not actually specific, go to such and such a place. And since he made a mistake, that ended up actually costing him and was ended up sold to Mitzrayim.